Tonight, more concerns about conditions at Her Majesty's Penitentiary, rodents, mold, staffing problems, and now concerns some inmates at HMP are being denied basic charter rights.
Nurses are being injured on the job, and the union is calling for changes.
Well, we've had registered nurses with their noses broke. There's something has to be done.
Manulife has backtracked on a deal with Loblaw that would restrict coverage of specialty drugs, and one Labrador MHA says that's a good thing for the area.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. We begin with more concerns about the welfare of inmates in Her Majesty's Penitentiary, but this time it's not only the living conditions in the decrepit prison that are causing concern. The Law Society says it's worried the inmates are being denied basic charter rights. Here and Now, Sarah Blackmore reports.
There are more worries about the inmates at Her Majesty's Penitentiary. And it's not just the crumbling prison or the rodents or the mold. The Law Society now says it's concerned about the basic charter rights of inmates there, and it outlined those concerns in a letter to the Justice Department in December. The letter outlined two main concerns: that some lawyers have been unable to communicate with their clients at the penitentiary, and that some inmates aren't being brought to court for appearances. Today, the NDP accused the government of not taking the Law Society seriously and called on the Justice Department to do something about it now.
People who have been arrested and detained, may not have adequate access to a lawyer. So their human rights are being infringed upon. And like I said, that's the cornerstone of our democracy. But also too, this is just one part of an ongoing saga. Like we saw, I got in my hands here, the Auditor General's report about adult custody and community concerns, and it was so damning. And when we raised the issue in the House of Assembly, the minister said it's old information because it was for 2019. But when we look, there has been nothing done, or very little done, to actually address the issues of people going into the correctional system.
The week after the Law Society wrote their letter in December, Justice Minister Hogan responded with his own letter, writing that they had hired 25 new recruits and had 23 more cadets in training. The department believes that addressing staffing issues at HMP will help give more access to services for inmates and maybe not miss court appearances or meetings with their lawyers. But Nate believes that the real issue might be retaining staff.
But I'm hearing anecdotally at HMP that some people went in, looked around and said, this is not for me. Talking about the work environment, not the work. And that's what people have to be clear. It's not the work. Now, the work is challenging. If you talk to frontline officers, it adversely affects mental health and physical health. But the environment down there is certainly not conducive to trying to convince people to stay and work there, not if they don't see an end in sight.
CBC has requested an interview with Justice Minister John Hogan. Sarah Blackmore, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, Justice Minister John Hogan did not do an interview about this, but Eric Humber with the Justice Department sent a statement instead. It says more than 65 new correctional officers will join the workforce across the province this fiscal year. But Humber's statement didn't say how many of them will be working at HMP. Well, now to healthcare. Hundreds of nurses are being injured on the job every year, and that number isn't going down. The province's Registered Nurses Union wants government to do something about it. Here Now's Mark Quinn reports on the call to improve safety for nurses.
These numbers are staggering.
CBC News asked Workplace NL for a yearly breakdown of the number of times nurses have reported being injured at work since 2016. Every year, that total number has hovered around 400. The worst year was 2018, when 450 nurses filed injury reports. Coffey said some of the injuries are the result of the violence that nurses sometimes face at work.
Well, we've had registered nurses with their noses broke. People pulling on them and causing soft tissue or muscle injuries.
Furthermore, Coffey said the true number of injuries is higher because nurses don't always report them.
Any injury at all requires you to be off work with half your pay, essentially, when you go on workplace NL compensation. We don't even have accurate statistics here because a lot of nurses, and I'm saying registered nurses, licensed practical nurses, they don't even claim workers' comp because of the money and the decreased compensation. They actually use up their sick leave.
Coffey's disturbed that the annual rate of injuries that are reported hasn't changed significantly since 2016.
And the biggest concern here is that we keep asking for an independent health sector safety council to address these injuries, to address the violence, because since 2019, when we had the Violence Health Forum, there has been no strategic plan to address violence in healthcare.
Coffey wants an independent safety council to include both employers and union members. Health Minister Tom Osborne says the province agrees that healthcare worker injuries are unacceptable. He said it's his understanding that the sort of council the nurses are looking for is being discussed with the Health Authority and Workplace NL.
We share the concern of the Registered Nurses Union. We support the notion of looking for solutions and working towards resolving the issue.
An independent health sector safety council would likely be funded by NL Health Services. Osborne said the provincial government will work with the unions and the Health Authority to ensure resources are available for it. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, starting today, anyone heading into a hospital or other healthcare facility will have to wear a mask. The Provincial Health Authority brought back masking amid concerns about a surge in respiratory illnesses like influenza, strep A, COVID-19, and other airborne viruses. The Provincial Health Department says it's a temporary measure and health officials will reevaluate the move on March 31st. It's the first time there's been a mask mandate in healthcare centers since last May. Well, people in Nova Scotia are digging out after a historic multi-day storm slammed much of the province. Some residents of hard-hit Cape Breton are being told to shelter in place as crews struggle to clear snow-covered streets. In this province, some areas of the island got a substantial dump of snow as well, along with heavy drifting. Here now's Troy Turner reports.
Getting around the streets of central Newfoundland was tricky this morning. 2 Gander drivers felt the effects during this mid-morning collision. No one was injured during the mishap. A different scene here than in the Maritimes, and for most people it was a morning of steady shoveling and snow blowing and plowing and clearing snow in every way possible.
I checked the forecast a couple of times, 5 to 10, a little bit of drizzle, freezing rain. I even went to Walmart and I said, well, looking pretty good so far, but we'll come this morning, here we are.
Rice has spent the last 5 winters in Gander. He's originally from Herring Neck, where the winters of his youth were different.
In November, say, me and my dad, we used to go in the woods, like cutting wood. Man, December by Christmas, we would have our wood out. But like these years now, like you take, like I said, like January, we never had no snow in January. And this little bit, well, I mean, this is, no, I don't like it. I don't want to see it, sorry skidoors. But like I said, at home, like you said years ago, man, we would be buried.
It was a day off for many, and families took advantage of the new snowfall. Snowmobilers were eager to take in the fresh powder of the nearby forests. And for some kids, it was the perfect environment for good old fun.
Well, we're playing with that castle and playing with my friends. I like inside.
Is that your friend?
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
This snow castle is an ideal playground for trying new stunts.
Because I'm just jumping in the snow and it doesn't break bones.
There's also digging tunnels, building snow forts, and even some snow battles.
Throw snowballs.
You throw snowballs? Who do you throw snowballs at?
My mom and dad.
You can't be serious. You throw snowballs at mom and dad. What do they think of that?
really funny.
Visibility around town was limited earlier in the day, but began to improve as the morning ended.
Well, the amount of snowfall in Gander certainly slowed down as of early afternoon, even if the winds continue to howl. Many of the businesses that were closed early this morning have since opened up. It's a welcome reprieve for those who continue to shovel themselves out, well, at least until the next major dump. Troy Turner, CBC News, Gander.
Oh, if we take a look at some of the snowfall amounts that were recorded thanks to this system, the Rec House area picked up about 43 centimeters of snow. I'm seeing that the Port aux Basques area saw quite a bit of snow as well, likely the most amount of snow, but I don't have any reports from there. Kippens picked up 29 centimeters, Stephenville 25, Deer Lake same thing, and Gander, you picked up about 15 centimeters of snow. The thing is it was very wet. That has since changed over now to freezing drizzle, like Troy has said, and the reason for what has happened over the last couple of days is an area of low pressure south of Nova Scotia. There's another barrel or another area of low pressure just to the south now, so it's called a double barrel low at this point. But these, like I've been saying for days and days, are notoriously hard to forecast. And if you've been looking at the forecast, especially here in the metro area over the last couple of days, it has certainly changed many, many times. We've got a freezing drizzle advisory in place now for the Northeast. I'll talk all about that and what's left to fall when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, some news from London now. Buckingham Palace says King Charles has been diagnosed with cancer. The palace has clarified that the king does not have prostate cancer, but says a form of cancer was discovered while he was being treated for an enlarged prostate last month. He began undergoing cancer treatment today and won't perform any public-facing duties until it's complete. Charles became king in September of 2022 after his mother passed away. Prince Harry, who quit royal duties in 2020 and moved to the U.S., is expected to fly to the U.K. to see his father. Well, health insurance provider Manulife is backtracking on its deal with Loblaw. It was a deal that caused particular concern in Labrador. The initial deal would have meant about 260 specialty drugs would only be covered at Loblaw-owned pharmacies, but there are no pharmacies owned by Loblaw in Labrador, and about 3/4 of people there are covered by Manulife. But Manulife has since axed that plan because of public backlash. The MHA for Labrador West says it's a relief.
It's an interesting that they, over the past week, that they turned around and realized that some of this policy would actually have a massive negative effect on Canadians, especially rural Canadians, and those who don't live near a Loblaw affiliated pharmacy, and especially in a region like Labrador West where we don't have anyone like that. So this is a positive change, and I think it's in the right direction, showing messaging that Canadians are not interested in American-style politics.
Well, Manulife says in a statement that 100% of Canadians the company covers will be able to receive their medications at a pharmacy of their choosing. The company says home delivery will also continue to be an option, and the changes will be made, quote, swiftly, with updates provided on the company's website. Well, Premier Andrew Furey was in Dubai this past weekend to try to recruit healthcare workers. Government says he joined other healthcare officials from the province at the Canadian Health Attraction Recruitment Mission. Furey also met with officials from the Canadian University of Dubai to explore partnership and expansion opportunities. In a social media post, Furey says he was sharing what the province has to offer, quote, from competitive benefits to quality of life. Well, the RNC says it's investigating after shots were fired at a home in St. John's. Officers responded to a report of gunshots at 11:30 on Saturday night. Police say it was determined that the shots had been fired at a home on Mitchell Court from the area of Guy Street. There were no injuries reported, and the attack is believed to have been targeted. For generations, churches were the gathering place in small communities. But as churches close, those spaces are disappearing. In Newfoundland and Labrador, there are efforts to reimagine those spaces to keep them public. Here Now's Peter Cowan reports.
The Cathedral of Immaculate Conception played a key role in the community life of Harbour Grace for more than a century. But a decade ago, the shrinking congregation could no longer afford the drafty old stone church.
When we got word that they had to close the church, it was devastating to the town, but I guess seeing it barred up there and closed for a number of years, when we knew it was no longer going to open, we knew the writing was on the wall for it as a building.
Where many saw decay, Brenda O'Reilly saw opportunity. She and her partner are investing millions to develop a different kind of community hub. The west transept will become a brewery and distillery. The east transept, a restaurant. The crypt down below will become a spa.
It was obviously intimidating, but our desires are pure. Our interest in this is real. We want to create something that will stand for years to come. It can be something that the community is very much a part of.
Not everyone supports the plan for the place they used to worship in. But Nicholas Lynch, who studies the transformation of churches, says it may be better than having the building carved up into condos.
Public space is a vital component of a healthy, livable city and community. And it doesn't matter where you are in Canada. That is absolute importance.
It's a concern across the province. The Catholic Church has sold off dozens of properties to raise money to compensate victims of abuse. In Pooch Cove near St. John's, Chris Shortle put in a lowball offer for one of them. Now he owns it and has to figure out what to do with it.
I don't think that the church should be converted into accommodations. I think it should, if possible, be used as a community space because it's got lots of good seating and it's got pretty good acoustics.
Churches like this will continue to close down, sold off to the highest bidder. Nicholas Lynch has advice for communities. If they want to keep these as public spaces, they need to start to plan before the for sale sign goes up. Peter Cowan, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, now to some sports news. It was a busy weekend for both the Growlers and the Rogues. The Rogues are in Ontario in the midst of a road trip, while the Growlers are back on home ice following a few weeks away.
And this Sunday afternoon matinee is underway. The Growlers winning the game's first face-offs.
In St. John's, the Growlers hosted the Indy Fuel at the Mary Brown Centre for 3 games. The teams took turns winning on Friday and Saturday night, with the Growlers losing 5-3 on Friday before coming out on top Saturday night with a 6-3 win. In the rubber match on Sunday, the teams took their 3-3 draw to overtime before needing a shootout to decide a winner. The Indy left the province with a 4-3 victory. Switching now to basketball, the Newfoundland Rogues hit the road for the first time this season. The team traveled to Ontario to play games in Sudbury and Kingston Waterloo. The Rogues came up short against the Five in Sudbury, losing a heartbreaker 126-125 on Friday night. Yesterday, Newfoundland found itself on the losing end of a tilt with the Titans, 105-96. The Rogues stay in Ontario to play in Windsor on Wednesday before heading to Montreal for a game on Friday. Well, if you watched the Grammy Awards last night, you would have seen a lot of world-class musical talent. None from this province, but did you know that in 1998, Neil Rosenberg, a St. John's folklore professor, won a Grammy for Best Album Notes for his work on the anthology of American folk music? Here he is talking about that experience.
Yeah, that's the Grammy, which came to me in the winter of 1998. The Grammy was for album notes to this album, the Anthology of American Folk Music, and there were 10 of us that were nominated. Well, I was very pleased. The record had done well. There had been a lot of press when it was released in the fall of '97. It got a big write-up in the New York Times, things like that. So had a sense that it was doing well. So this was just another piece of news on that line. I flew down to New York, stayed with a friend, and then stayed at a hotel by where the ceremony was held, and went to the ceremony, which is at Radio City Music Hall. I particularly remember Bob Dylan because he not only got a Grammy, but he came out and performed. And while he was performing, some guy who was naked from the waist up and had some kind of a tattoo or statement on his chest, came out and started walking around, obviously not part of the show. And after a very short time, people came out from backstage and picked this guy up and, you know, carried him off. So that was kind of a memorable moment. And we were at the start of the ceremony. You know, they start with the what do you want to say? Not the big news ones, but the lesser ones that have to do with the music industry itself. And the awards came. We got our award. We went up on stage. There were 10 of us nominated, and I think there were 8 or 9 of those 10 were there. Afterwards, we were all hustled backstage to go into a room where there were reporters and stuff. We all were, you know, photographed and interviewed, and then came back to our place. And then there was an intermission, and they moved us, kind of second-rate types, up to the balcony, and all the big names moved in down below. But we were there for the whole show. And thereafter, for a long time, people kind of mentioned it or recognized it. You don't get that kind of, you know, recognition or that sort of experience for most awards. You know, they come and they go. An award is an award, but I still get people say, you know, Newfoundland's only Grammy winner, something like that. So it's persistent.
We've got a nice big ridge of high pressure keeping the weather quiet up across Labrador, but that area of low pressure still spinning to the east. We'll talk about what's in store over the next couple of days when I come back.
All right, before we get to the weather, happy National WeatherPersons Day, Ashley. It's a day that's in the U.S., but we can celebrate it here as well. We got you a little cake.
You even got me a cake
earlier today.
I needed it today.
Yeah, this is a day to appreciate your local meteorologist, and we appreciate you for all the work that you did on the weekend. My goodness, that system was just like a roller coaster. It was just changing constantly. How are you doing? Are you okay?
Yeah. Yes, I'm fine. I mean, for the most part, the storm panned out for most areas, especially through Central from the forecast on Friday. And, you know, it always looked like the snow was going to fall to the west. So that's good
and
news
it did,
there,
yeah.
and it did. But we still have, you know, a couple more, at least another day for this area of low pressure to affect us here in the east. But it brought a lot of snow to Nova Scotia, incredible amounts of snow. Here's how it looked in Sydney, where some areas saw as much as 150 centimeters of snow. Cape Breton Regional Municipality remains under a local state of emergency, and all schools in Cape Breton were closed today. The municipality says that the main streets are being plowed, but the side roads are still snowed in.
Wow.
So there is no surprise for that after 150 centimeters of snow. That is just incredible. I just wanted to show you what the snowfall amounts here. For a little bit earlier, I had the wrong amount in there for Deer Lake. 23 centimeters of snow actually fell for you. But yes, we are pretty much done with the snow for now for the west coast and the southwest coast of the island. But we are going to see some more snow as we head through the overnight, probably along the northeast coast. At this point, we are seeing some showers move in for the west. The radar, unfortunately, has gone out nationwide at this point, but we can see that cloud cover moving in. Now, we do have a more northerly flow along the northeast coast there, and we are seeing some freezing drizzle being reported as those temperatures hovering around 0 or a little bit below. Bonavista, you're still above 0 for now, but St. John's hovering around the 0-degree mark. So freezing drizzle advisory in place. We're looking at those winds gusting right now anywhere from 60 to about 70 kilometers per hour. And we're expecting these winds to continue as well through the overnight. So most of you from essentially Grand Falls, Windsor, all the way through to Terra Nova are under that freezing drizzle advisory. And we should see that change over to snow as we head through the night. Now, precipitation rates right now are light, which is why we are seeing the freezing drizzle, but some snow should redevelop, and when that happens, we should see that transition back to snow. If we see a little bit more freezing drizzle through the overnight, snowfall amounts will likely be on the lower side, but we could pick up anywhere from 5 to 15 centimeters of snow by the time we get through tonight and into tomorrow afternoon before that tapers off. But the eastern portion of the island now, as far as the Avalon is concerned, Bonavista Peninsula as well, we will likely see the temperatures warm up a little bit, and especially areas towards the coast will see some drizzle through the overnight. There's your temperatures, again, within a couple of degrees of 0. Those winds gusting anywhere from 30 to 60 kilometers per hour. Island-wide up across Labrador, you're sitting under a ridge of high pressure. For the most part, quiet weather, just a few flurries in Cartwright tonight. Again, your winds will be out of the northwest 30 to 50. The coolest temperatures in Lab City at about minus 27 tonight under clear skies. Now, tomorrow, it is that snow will likely continue from essentially Green Bay, White Bay, all along the northeast coast to Terra Nova. Bonavista, you'll probably see some snow to start, rain towards the coast, and then a bit of a break. Then we get towards the Avalon. By the time we get into the morning, most of us will be seeing rain, but there are some indications that we will see that transition through to snow in the afternoon. It'll start earlier for the northwest Avalon, but starting around noon for the metro area. And then this will mix with rain to start, and then eventually transition through to snow. And it looks like it could be heavy right through tomorrow evening, eventually tapering off as we get into the overnight period into early Wednesday. Now, we're still in that northerly flow. It'll probably taper to freezing drizzle and maybe even continue through Wednesday. As far as rainfall amounts are concerned, 10 to 20 millimeters not out of the question, a little less as you head towards the Bonavista and Burin Peninsulas. And as far as snowfall is concerned, There are some models that are pointing at a significant amount of snow. I don't think that that's going to happen. I think at the end of the day, we'll see somewhere between 5 to 15 centimeters of snow, because most of what does fall should fall as rain and a really, really heavy snow, wet snow, I should say. So it's going to have a really hard time accumulating in the first little bit, especially in the afternoon, but we could see some periods of heavier snow. But I do think 5 to 15 centimeters is a good bet, really all along the northeast coast, including the Avalon and the metro area. Northerly winds tomorrow as well, 50 to 80 kilometers per hour. Again, temperatures 0 to 1. That will be the story through central as well, as you see that taper off eventually in the evening hours to freezing drizzle. Northeasterly winds again, 30 to 60 kilometers per hour for the west coast. You're looking at your flurries early in the day, then they will end. And Cartwright, you should hover around -7 tomorrow with some sunshine. Most of Labrador sitting this one out. Again, -8 in Nain, and your temperature around -12 in Lab City with generally light winds. So temperatures warming up, but they're going to cool down again. We'll get into that in the long range forecast coming up a little later.
And then all of a sudden I get this message on Facebook. Hi, my name is Tangine. I've heard from other people at work that the lady with my name was on the radio. And so we started talking. I'm going, I've never met another Tangine. This is fabulous.
Hear the almost unbelievable story of how two St. John's women are united by a unique name. That's coming up. Well, we have an almost unbelievable story for you next. We've been calling it the tale of the two Tangines. And I don't want to give too much away, so just listen to this interview with CBC's Chrissy Holmes from the St. John's Morning Show.
Do you know the origins of your name, like how you got your name?
My father was Welsh. He was born in Cardiff, Wales. My grandmother was Welsh. My dad grew up in Cambridge and London area during the war, and it was a name he had heard when he was younger. Comes from a Welsh background. He tells me, or he told me, it meant more rising of the sun, and I was born very early in the morning in June, so he felt it was a particularly good name, and he had decided that's what he was going to call his daughter.
And you were where were you at that time?
I was born in Swift Current, Saskatchewan. We moved for a brief time, like 8 months, and lived in Edmonton. And in Edmonton, as 10 years old, in 1972, I went on a live kids program called Popcorn Playhouse. I had to apply. I got accepted. My mother was furious because she had to drive into the city of Edmonton with these children. She knew nothing about this, or claimed she didn't. We went on this live show. I can remember introducing myself and having to say my name a couple of times. And on our merry little way we went. And then we moved back to Saskatchewan, didn't think another thing of it, moved to Newfoundland in 2014.
So I'm going to go to the other Tangine now, Tangine Pahoko. You were, okay, just tell us how you got your name.
The story goes that my mother wanted to have a dozen children. At this point, she might have had 3, and she was watching the local Edmonton television show where I was born and raised and where my family was situated. They were watching Popcorn Playhouse with her 3 daughters, and she heard this name. She thought it was really pretty, and it was Tangine, and she thought the little girl was like this beautiful little blonde girl, and she thought, wow, if I have another daughter, which I will, having a dozen children, I'm going to name my next little girl Tangine. So she wrote it down. She didn't know how to spell it because she just heard it. So she made a fancy spelling because, you know, why not? She spelled it Tangiene just because she felt that was maybe whimsical and pretty.
And is that how you spell your name, Tangine?
I am Tangyne. Very Welsh. The Y's and N's in there.
So this is pretty incredible. So it was the same Tangine, obviously. I mean, this is in a small 8-month window, as you put, in Edmonton. What year approximately are we in right now?
This is it would have been 1972.
Okay.
Because that's the only time I was on a live TV program as a kid.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
I was born in 75.
So how did you make this connection?
Well, I came on the radio with you, and I left and went about my merry way, and then all of a sudden I get this message on Facebook. Hi, my name is Tangine. I've heard from other people at work that the lady with my name was on the radio. And so we started talking. I'm going, I've never met another Tangine. This is fabulous. We chat away, and I said, where did you come from? She said, oh, born and raised in Edmonton. I'm going, okay. And then she goes, yes, my mom heard this name on a radio program. I'm going, wait a minute. I was in Edmonton. I was on a children's program. Oh my goodness, this is me. And it blew our mind.
It's amazing, actually. So when you actually finally realized this, like, what did you do? Have you been talking since?
Pretty much, yeah. We texted and went back and forth probably most of that day. I got very little work done. I couldn't think. We arranged to meet. We were both kind of concerned. Do we meet? Can we exchange cell numbers? Can we do this? So we met last Thursday for lunch. I chatted with her mom on a FaceTime chat, which was fabulous. I sent her mom a picture of me, what I looked like in 1972. Giving away my age here. But,
wow. So how did your mom react? I'm looking at Tangine Pahoko now.
Yeah. oh, my mom was blown. Like my mind was blown. My family, everybody in my family. I do come from a big family. Everybody was so excited. My mom said she just never dreamed that would ever happen. She said she started getting flashbacks of that little pretty girl on the television show, and just the moment of when she heard my name. So it was really exciting. Also because people mentioned, like later on in life, like, oh, maybe your mom actually never heard the name Tangine. Maybe she heard something else and then just wrote that down. And I was like, no, my mom heard the name Tangine.
It's pretty incredible. And not only, okay, so the Edmonton and the TV show and the whole thing, like, but you're both here in St. John's and you both work at MUN.
I know this blows my mind and made this small world very, very small.
I sometimes am a crybaby, but that day I was like verklempt, where I just couldn't think. I was distracted. I was almost crying at work, which is just mind-blowing.
I've never run into anyone. I've heard a similar sort of name used in a Star Trek type of show with an alien, but I've never heard anything that's been exactly the same. And it's amazing, and how it all happened is just really, really cool.
Black History Month for me is always an amazing time to just create safe spaces and events that are curated for the Black community, because we don't have many of those.
Well, coming up, a discussion on Black History Month in this province. Well, the days are slowly getting longer at this time of year, and that's good news for farmers. So at OBrien Farm in St. John's over the weekend, people gathered to celebrate Imbolc, a Celtic tradition that marks the midway point of winter. Here's how it looked on Sunday.
This is our first Sunday at OBrien Farm event of the year, and today we're celebrating a Celtic calendar event called Imbolc. This one celebrates the midway point between the winter solstice and the spring equinox, and it celebrates the coming of spring. This was also known as St. Bridget's Day, and she was a saint who celebrated healing and renewal and those sorts of things. So Imbolc and St. Bridget's Day came to be associated with one another, and the St. Bridget's cross became one of an important Irish symbol as well. It's celebrating sort of the end of the winter and the coming of spring. So one of the traditional activities was burning boughs that you would have been using to decorate for Christmas, for example. So often people would have fires, and we'll have a fire here today, kind of in that spirit. Today we're inviting people to come explore our cottage and our museum spaces and really spend some time outside, and we'll be having a guided hike as well.
We try and manage this much like a park, and we want people to come and be able to enjoy walking around the space, as long as they do it respectfully of the farmers and kind of some of the things we have going on here, right? Over the last couple of years, we've been really lucky to build kind of two very new kind of spaces here on the farm. So one is our learning center, which is a interpretation center. So nice, small, little one-room museum, but it's really quaint, cozy. We can do a lot of different things in there. And then a kitchen barn. So where there was a big old barn kind of up on the hillside that had fallen down and really got destroyed during Snowmageddon. We were able to rebuild it, and so now it's like an event space. So we can do a lot of different things in there, and it's a beautiful indoor-outdoor space. We're doing everything that we can to kind of preserve it the best we can while still using it, right? Which is really important. It was never meant to be just a relic of the past. It was meant to be a working farm.
Well, this is Black History Month, and this year's theme is Black Excellence, a heritage to celebrate, a future to build. Our colleagues at CBC Radio's The Signal dug into that today, and here's part of their conversation.
All right, Black History Month. What does it mean to you? Oh my God. And I know it's like, well, Adam, we could have a podcast on that. I'm like,
absolutely, we could have a podcast, and I'd be so down for it.
It would be really cool, actually.
It would be so much fun. To me, I think it means a lot of things. So I will preface. So when I first got to Canada, Black History Month meant nothing to me because I didn't really understand what it meant to be Black. So I grew up in Nigeria till I was 8. So I was Nigerian, I was Igbo.
Yeah.
I was Christian, but I wasn't Black till I got here. And then I was like, oh, wait, what? So getting to see the diversity in what Black history looks like, depending on when you figured out that you were Black, is what it is to me.
So moving here and experiencing Black History Month for me was a bit different, just where I lived on campus when I first came, and there weren't really a lot of events that were specifically catered to diverse communities, or not intentionally, but like just by the nature of it, it wasn't very inclusive at the time. I didn't really like understand or like vibe with what was going on. So when I realized that, there was Black History Month that's celebrated within Canada, to me that was an opportunity to create a safe space and to create events and activities that were for the Black community, where we could have a safe space, feel welcomed, and just experience some familiarity with our culture that we would have at home. So Black History Month for me is always an amazing time to just create safe spaces and events that are curated for the Black community, because we don't have many of those. So yeah.
Police in London, Ontario today apologized to the victim of an alleged sexual assault by hockey players in 2018.
I want to extend, on behalf
of the London Police Service, my sincerest apology to the victim, to her family, for the amount of time that it has taken to reach this point.
The woman reported the alleged assault to police in 2018 in June. Police closed the case, but after a review, reopened it in 2022. The players skated for the Canadian team that competed at the 2018 World Junior Championship. 4 of them now play in the NHL, and the other one plays in Switzerland. The players' lawyers appeared in court by video conference this morning. The case has been put over to the end of April. And those charges have many in sports circles talking about sexual assault. Kwabena Oduro introduces us to a minor hockey league in Ontario that's taking steps to ensure its players understand the meaning and importance of consent.
This is a refresher course on consent.
No means no, exactly right. That is the main thing.
The students are from the Douro Dukes men's hockey team.
It was good. It was good to know, because I think it's something that needs to be known in dressing rooms.
It's a result of a partnership between the league and the Kawartha Sexual Assault Centers. Players talk about respect, leadership, sex, as well as drugs and alcohol. Some players agree a cultural shift is needed in the locker room.
Well, there's a lot of hazing, kind of, I would say, and sometimes it can go a little far. So it's just good to find that line.
Leading Saturday's workshop, former pro rugby player Luke Ben Veltson. He says many young athletes question the notion of consent because of traditional gender roles and toxic masculinity in sports.
These sorts of programs will help prevent these types of ideas. And the thing that I think helps that prevention the most is that it gives kids an opportunity to intervene with their mates at a level before it gets there.
He says it's important that these lessons come from someone the players can relate to, and parents agree.
He definitely appreciated it coming from somebody else instead of his parents, because he was able to connect with the instructor better than what we could connect with him.
Since last year, around 150 young people aged 7 to 18 have received the training on a voluntary basis, nearly 95% of the league's players.
We're building kids that are going to be our citizens of tomorrow, and we want them to be respectful, and we want them to only maybe start changing the image of hockey and what that looks like. It's a pretty privileged sport, and we want to seek those opportunities to influence change if we're able.
But it all depends on the message getting through. That bad behavior of the past is simply not acceptable.
I don't really talk about it much, but I think it's horrible, and I don't think it should ever happen again. And hopefully with guys like Luke coming around and talking at all arenas, it won't happen again.
Well, that was the CBC's Kwabena Oduro reporting. And Ashley will be by with the long-range forecast in just a few minutes.
dealer.
All right, time for a look at the long range. And Ashley, you've been dealing with this fickle system that's been out there. How much longer are you going to be dealing with that? And how much longer are we going to be dealing with that?
Yeah, that's one word for it. It is one more day. Let's just say that. By Tuesday night into Wednesday, we should start to see the majority of it move offshore. But it's still going to give us this onshore flow, which could lead to more freezing drizzle. So let's take a look at what's going to happen as we head through Tuesday evening. So we should see that snow. That will taper off across the Avalon, but it should taper to either flurries and or freezing drizzle. Like I said, we're still in that northerly flow. Winds will ease much less than what they will be tomorrow, that's for sure. And we'll start to see some clearing by the time we get into Wednesday morning for parts of the west coast, and that should clear out towards central as we get into the evening hours as well. Now up across Labrador, it has been fairly quiet weather-wise. See the potential for some snow to move back in for Lab West through the evening hours, and maybe a few scattered flurries in and around central areas and north coastal areas of Labrador. Temperatures are going to stay into the minus single digits. That's well above where you should be sitting this time of year up across Labrador, and we'll hover around zero, maybe a bit above to the south, a little bit below through central and the northern peninsula through the afternoon hours on Wednesday. And again, either flurries or the potential for some freezing drizzle. This may linger into Thursday as well as we continue to see that onshore flow. A little less likely the further north you get, and then the west coast will probably see some sunshine through the day on Thursday as well. A little bit of pockets of sunshine up across Labrador, generally under cloud cover through the day. Our temperatures across the Big Land are starting to dip, especially to the north. Nain will hover around minus 13, otherwise minus single digits, and then really not moving a whole lot across the island as far as temperatures are concerned either for your Thursday. Again, freezing drizzle certainly possible. As we look ahead to the long-range forecast, Friday, maybe some flurries will return again, but Saturday at this point looks lovely. Sunshine, 0 degrees. Our overnight lows will sit into the minus single digits through the day. Now for central Newfoundland, once we get to Thursday afternoon, and then continuing through Friday and Saturday, we should see some sunshine. We may see temperatures bump up a little bit above zero for your Saturday. For western Newfoundland, you're looking at a similar forecast for as far as your temperatures are concerned, maybe a bit more cloud cover on Saturday for you in the west. Flurries Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for eastern Labrador. Temperatures warming up -1, and then even warming up across western Labrador as well. As you see, your temperatures anywhere from about -3 to -4. But again, we could see some light snow for your Saturday.
Oh, look at that.
I know Groundhog Day was last week, but this pitcher plant certainly waiting for spring. Dylan shared this great shot. It looks sad. Let's just say it's a sad shot. Sad. Poor pitcher plant. Anyway, thank you so much for that. If you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, you can send them to my Facebook page or email them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Thanks so much for that, Dylan. I must say, though, Ashley, I do like the temperatures being kind of around the 0 mark. You know,
it's not too bad.
It's not too cold out there. It's a bit more tolerable.
I agree. To get out and enjoy it anyway, what's on the ground for now.
All righty. Well, that's it for us. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us.